we had one foreshadowed motion and 6 other motions for item 3. You've all had the sheet with the 6 other motions on it, so you can digest it. So we've got movers and seconders for all of these. The foreshadowed motion is from Councillor McClellan that instead of going for recommendation 3, option 3, go for option 1.
So we don't have a seconder for that, sorry.
And the seconder is, you've got one? Yeah, cool. So now we're going to debate on...
And we will need seconders for each of these.
As we go down them, yeah, and I'm sure we will.
Okay. So if we just go down the...
Okay.
Excuse me, just on some of them we've got the rates increase and others they don't. I'd like, is there a rates increase on each of the amendments? I'm just wondering, seeing we're in a rates... Okay.
What we do after we've done the debate, and we'll vote individually on the motions, and as you say, you need to know the rates.
Yeah,
but then the staff will go away and tell us how much what we have just voted on has increased it.
Well, I can't vote on anything I don't know the increase
so
on.
Where there is a rate impact, that is known what the rate impact is there on that piece of paper. So perhaps if we do just walk through each one of these and clarify what they are.
Okay.
Is that best of this
before
question?
we go to...
so if there is a potential increase, I don't know, and it would be... Yeah. It would be responsible not to vote on something you don't know the increase of. That would be the responsible.
So these guys can talk about it.
Yeah. So if we move through, if people are happy that we just walk through each one of these one by one, so everyone's clear what they are, that will enable your debate on them.
Okay.
Noting that this is just agreeing for these amendments, if they pass, to go into the draft.
And so
nothing's concrete.
Yeah.
I realise, but it's a really simple question.
We're going to cover it. Yep, we're going to cover it.
Okay.
Let's come back
so
in
we'll start off
February,
with number 1.
Number 1, which is requesting advice on increasing rating for renewals, including the impact on rates and total cost savings to ratepayers over the remaining 9 years of the long-term plan. That's been moved by Councillor Templeton.
Yep.
That's just for advice. So at that point, the advice will come back and talk about rate increase.
But the issue that I'd like to clarify is that staff already know that it's not a trade-off, and that if we increase the rating for renewals, there will be an increase in rates to the first year.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Through you, Ms. Mayor, that's correct. So we'll do some modelling on some couple of options and what that look like, and for the rates impact on each of those years.
Modelling aside, you don't need to do modelling. You already know that there will be an increase to rates if you take that approach in the first year.
Correct.
Okay. So we're just talking about number 1 at this stage. Andre?
Thank you. If it impacts all remaining 9 years, how can it be considered as part of an annual plan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So what we will bring back is advice on what we could look at, what council could consider consulting on. It will show all the 9 years, but you're quite correct. We're only making a decision on the annual plan year, the year 25-26.
Thank you.
Okay. Pauline?
Does that enter into materiality, though? Because we went through this in quite detail with the LTP.
Can I just check though, because staff have already increased rating for renewals as part of the annual plan. So they've already done a little bit. So my question is, if we did a bit more, what would that look like? Being that in the LTP, if we had stuck to our guns and done the rating for renewals we had been planning, we'd have saved $15 million in interest over the 10 years. So I want to know what it would look like and what we might save if we increased rating for renewals a little bit now.
Well, I think that was done in the LTP anyway, wasn't it? The
So at this stage, you're not making the decision. You're just making the decision whether you want some advice about it.
Okay. Tim?
Yeah. So just on that, will the advice have in it around sort of like the ComCom information? Because obviously that'll have a major impact, like the question sort of answer we had before. I mean, is that going to be possible to get that advice in time? Because it's just, I think Andre's point was very, very valid, which was, this is talking about 9 years. and yet we've got new legislation coming in and the ComCom obviously dealing with it as well. Is it likely to be able to get that? If we're going to get advice on it and you're going to spend time on it, we need the full picture. And are we able to get that by the end of January?
Look, through you, Your Worship, we'd seek to model in the very best information we had at the time, Councillor, and the legislation is imminent, but we don't know what it is, and it may be subject to regulation. But what we would seek to do is make sure any current advice that was around local water done well was also reflected in some shape or form in that. Whether we'd have much in the way of information that would enable us, I can't comment, but we'd be able to tell you when it came back whether it did or did not, or to what extent it included that advice, that current information.
Right, okay.
Can I just clarify though, I'm not asking for us to increase rating for renewals every year for 9 years, but if we increased it for next year, what would the impact be? Because a lot of the impact in the savings comes in lowered interest costs because we've borrowed less money.
Okay, so actually, shall we just clarify
we just
that
put a number in
motion?
there,
So
if
it's saying request staff to provide us an increasing rating of renewals in the financial year annual plan.
I guess what I'm trying to work out though is
including the impact.
I think that's what I'm just trying to establish. It's back to Tim's point, is like there must be a range of rate increase, Sarah, you've got in your mind in terms of the rating for renewals. Like you wouldn't have just, this won't be on the fly, so you must have an indication of a range.
It was just based on the information that we'd had in the long-term plan, because we increased it by a little bit in the long-term plan.
Correct.
It's unclear the percentage because I've said 5 million, so I can't go on a percentage because I've said 5 million here rather than a percentage.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to tell. So it's like if we were managing to get back to what we had been planning on doing, kind of thing. Not huge.
So would it be helpful if Sarah put a range in of the rate increase? Just so we have just back to Tim's point, which is we're putting a lot of pressure on the community and we kind of, before we vote on these, should know, is it 1%, is it 2%, is it 3% in terms of that impact?
It's not a percentage on rates.
Well, it's an increase in revenue, which by definition is an increase.
Yeah, except that the way that the staff have framed it for us at the moment is a dollar value rather than a percentage, so it's hard for me to give a percentage when that's not how the information has been framed to start with.
But if it's $1, we can easily get the percentage.
That's why I've asked for
that's how we've done
information, because I don't have the information on all of that. So I can't give that because there's not the information available.
So we don't, okay.
Does that make sense? I'm just asking for the information on ways to save money.
It doesn't, because I'm nervous about doing it given I don't have a range.
Because if we're asking, if we're just asking for the information before we vote on it, because we're just asking and voting on getting the information.
That's right.
But I do not want it to carry over to say, oh, you voted yes for this, so therefore it's going to happen.
No, absolutely.
So
It's just asking for information.
I cannot vote on anything I don't know the added
what I was trying to get to is whether, given the amendments put up there, just what the mover was thinking in terms of the banding, but we clearly haven't got that, so that's okay.
Okay, everyone happy? Right.
Do you not want it to look 60?
We'll go to the next one, everyone. Now this one is actually quite simple.
Now, actually, do we have shall we get a seconder for that one? So
M2?
no, M1.
We had
Tyler.
Oh, did you? Oh, great. Okay.
So M2, we've got a seconder of Tyrone. Now this is actually quite simple. It's X number of dollars and it's going to make 0.01%. So is that quite clear, Aaron?
I thought when we voted on this during the LTP, it was for a delivery within 2 years, and we were to take it out to the group that submitted because they would deliver the project. Like, it's a large wooden ramp. I could get a builder to do it for the 75 without it being a feasibility assessment. Like, you can literally build the ramp for 75k. No, it's wood. These are wood. You'd kill yourself if it's concrete. Oh, yeah, but that's a council price.
No, it was a community project. The community building.
Okay, righto. Tyler?
Good. Okay.
For parks, is the 75k using internal budgets or is it external for a consultant to be able to do the work on it?
There'll be a little bit of both.
Okay, so that's requiring extra OPEX for staff to be able to provide on it?
That as well, but there will also be external noise consultants required and other consultants to get it across the line consent-wise.
Okay, and has any work been done on it so far after the long-term plan bid?
Only just meeting with stakeholders in terms of some really early planning stages.
And what was the feedback from them?
A little bit of mixed feedback in terms of the vert ramp and locations, but nothing really locked down. It's a little bit more complex than just building a ramp somewhere.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we did have a meeting, and one of the challenges is that if you're increasing the risk of noise, then you need to get really good planning advice. So that seems quite simple, just putting something in. Actually, there was some complications around resource management that staff need the ability to look at. But yeah, I mean, I did have up to, but I think we need to have the top amount. But the group is really keen to work with us on doing this as in the most affordable way possible. But there are some technical challenges with the planning process around it, where staff did identify that they did need some budget to get it to that next step. So
right, thank you. Tyrone, then Andre, and we'll move on to the next one.
So this is just on item 2. So I read in the paper that the Commonwealth Games feasibility study cost about $1,100 of staff time. Why is this 75 grand?
Again, this is just an early number, but we're just not sure. There's quite a little bit of work to do. It's not just going to look and things. There's consultant costs that, they drive it. Ballpark.
You start getting into
The
noise.
Commonwealth Games study didn't do site analysis, etc. And so you need geotechnical, you need proper.
I think a lot of the information, was at hand as well, so apples and oranges.
Andre.
Thank you. I'm not clear what the issues with noise would be. There's a skate park there now.
That's just.
You just have to talk me through what's the difference between this and what was going to be done anyway.
we didn't have a specific project because people were reluctant. I was keen to put capital on, but people were reluctant to put a capital figure in our LTP ahead of getting a report back on the potential costs. The staff have engaged and are working with the skaters around some of the designs that they've put forward. And the view was that we're going to get a report back to council, but if we want to take it to that next step, we need some money to do a detailed feasibility because of some of the concerns around some of the planning environments that we have at Washington Way.
So nothing will advance without this? Is that... Well, I guess that's...
There's a resolution to get a report back to council, which can still come back.
So there's already a report planning to come to us?
But that report doesn't... Well, at the moment, this would actually mean that once that report came back, there was money to progress to the next step, rather than having to wait for another year to get the budget in place to do the
When's
work.
that report due to come to us?
There's no date at the moment.
Right.
These may be a Rupert question.
So no, it won't be in time for the annual, it won't be before, because the paper's coming back in February for the annual plan. So this is actually putting money on budget. And when you're saying 75k, this is what we're estimating we'll need. We won't just spend 75k for the sake of it. It's enough holding money in there to do the work. And if we don't spend it all, we won't spend it all.
Okay, Tyler.
Andre asked all my questions.
Okie doke. Number 3, please, M3. Andre.
I understand a report is due to come back to council. Do we have any indication on when that may be?
Oh, sorry, before we go any further, is there a seconder? I'll send it to you.
Oh, I've just got a question.
Right, Mel, thank you. Sorry, carry on, Andrew.
We are preparing the report as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Obviously, it won't be this side of Christmas, but it'll be very quick as soon as you're back, basically.
Cool. So it would be before annual plan process in February. That's what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
Sam?
It's a really dumb question. Why do we need a noting amendment?
This is because the initial motion was to remove the funding and we actually identified there's no funding in the annual plan year, so we're noting that there's no capex in the annual plan year.
So we're noting to take money out that we haven't got.
You'll be able to support it because it's a fact.
Well, it just seems very.
Well, there's 4.1 million in total on budget there in the
I guess what I'm
in the
trying to work out
following
is,
year, which refers to that.
I mean, we're noting that advice is coming back, which is what we talked about at the last meeting, but we're putting it in again. I'm just maybe I'm missing something. But
it's because we tweaked the resolution from Councillor Templeton was to
remove the
funding, and when we actually checked the capital program, there was no funding. So we've
just changed it to note it.
Yeah.
That
so
seems like
when
good use of time.
Yeah.
But there's still another 3.9 million in there for the year following.
So we are making, the thing is we are making changes to multiple years during this process. When I first put the resolution in, it wasn't clear, and in fact staff had to look it up as well, where the funding was sitting, because that information isn't in front of us today. So I put the resolution up to remove it, and when I'd asked, people weren't clear. It turns out it's not in the next financial year, but we are making resolutions on multiple years for funding.
So this could come through at any stage. It doesn't need to be part of the annual plan process.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to understand though, and I must be missing it, is it's a noting amendment, so it's not asking for anything. Or am I missing something?
Yeah.
Like, am I missing something?
Well,
you're
probably wasting more time with the questions than we would have just passing it.
Or just
right. So okay. So but sorry to be a pain. I just want to get this right. So even if we vote for it, nothing changes.
No, that's right.
Right. So,
if you vote for it or against it, nothing changes.
Okay, thank you.
Really, it doesn't need to be there next year's, in theory. Yanni?
Do we know how much operational funding is attached to planning for this?
No, not at the moment, but we can come back, we can clarify that, but no, we don't know that off the top of our heads now.
Right, because if we wanted to make a rate saving, obviously that would be the money that you'd remove or reallocate to something else as a substitution.
When the advice comes back in the new year, we can cover that.
Okay, next one, M4. It's Yanni and Mel. And it's got the rates increase written there. Taila.
Kia ora, Johnny. Cool. How am I going to word this? With a annual plan increase in the budget of 1.13 mil, what would that do for us?
Haven't quantified that exactly, but that will allow us to progress the priority plan change list at a quicker pace.
Okay.
So we'll have more staff. It's two components to this. One is some additional staff, and the second is consultancy budget to allow us to get specialists for plan changes, such as coastal scientists for plan change 12 and things like that.
Okay, and where are you at the moment in terms of capacity?
We are at capacity, so we have people working on all plan changes at the moment to the capacity they can.
And which plans are currently being pushed aside to be able to get through the most?
There's quite a long list, but obviously we can put more resource onto some of the plan changes. So at the moment they're on a slower path because we've only got limited resource on each of them, and there is a longer list of plan changes as well. And then we have the government reform program, which will probably necessitate more planning work coming in next year as well.
Okay, last question was, if this was to pass, are there any plans that you'd actually prioritise? Is there a top 3 of priorities over the next couple of years to be able to push through your capacity?
Yeah, there's some but the priority plan change list has been through to council, so it's about sort of putting that through quicker. But plan change 12, coastal hazards, the industrial interface, and finishing off plan change 14 and 13 as well. There are a number of priorities.
Okay. So just to clarify, nothing's changed from what was reported in the previous workshops?
There's nothing
additional.
So what you've
traversed and agreed in the workshops.
Great. No, thanks.
Can I just also clarify with the team, at the moment in the draft you were proposing to consult on this, and this is saying editing.
Correct.
Yep. So just so everyone's aware,
and that's why that
option
number's
3.
there, the 0.15. Carry on, Tim.
I had two quick questions for two people. One is for you first, John. If this wasn't approved, what would be the outcome? What would be the result?
So because it's split into two, the consultancy budget would be overspent, I think, because we only have 150,000 for the year in for consultants to support plan changes, and we need coastal scientists, all sorts of different people. And the second part is additional staff, so that would just slow down the amount of work we could do on plan changes.
Thank you. The second question to you, Mary, unfortunately. With this as plan changes being a priority, with regards to kind of stealing from one to kind of cover the other, would there be an adjustment in the funding to account for this from, say, another area? So substitute whatever it is that put in front of us.
So as we've traversed in the workshops, we've been through looking at where we can redeploy resources or not fill vacancies. And so those have all been trimmed out. Yeah. And you would have seen in our budgets the number of our staff increases have been on our frontline services, and we have cut back all the discretionary funding to the core. So we have left vacancies open to find savings. We have reduced staffing on the back room already. So at this stage we have not identified where we could find 1.3 and not impact on service delivery.
Yeah, because the Minister of Transport asked Wakatahi with regards to what were the costs of the increased requirements for traffic management, and they had no idea. But it just seems this is a question perhaps for the Minister of Local Government. All these requests from central government, plan changes, etc. I'm sure that Wellington has no idea what the pressure on local government is that they are requiring and the true cost. Thank you.
And Jane.
I think Mary answered it. So is this the exact same as what was presented in our workshop? It's just that we're proposing to bake it in as opposed to consult on it.
That's right. Yep.
Sounds good. Right. Okay. M6. Andre?
Just responding to Tim's questions about rating impact. So, according to calculations, 5 million on a 7.7 million would be a 0.65% rating impact.
So we'll get finance to provide advice on that, just because that just protects you from doing that. So at the moment, this is just staff advice, and the staff advice will come back with that.
Victoria?
I thought I heard a reference from Russell that you've had some legal advice on this and that you were able to share that with us. Do you just remind me what that is, please?
I'll pass to Peter.
That's correct. We've just got the legal advice in a day or two back, and we will circulate it to all councillors. In essence, the advice is that provided we consult and are transparent, the accumulated fund can be used for another purpose, including reducing the general rate.
Sorry, that surprises me, because I thought we had a clause in there to say if we didn't use it, the cathedral, it had to go to heritage. But I thought,
I think what we'd like to do is we've only just got the advice, we circulate it and digest it and come back with it, I think is probably the better way.
Okay, righto. Vic again, please.
Can I just ask a question of my colleague that whether you're appraised of the long and very political and publicly divisive history to this issue in bringing this amendment, because there's quite a history to it that's gone back since the earthquake, of which time you were probably still a teenager. So are you appraised of the history to this matter and fully informed before you bring this amendment?
Indeed I am, and I'm very aware that the council decided to introduce a targeted rate against the majority of submissions. I'm not too young to not be aware of any of that.
Cool. So I just want to check with legal. So this would set a precedent that we can pretty much renege on any deal we want going forward. So we can go out to the public, consult, make a promise and then go, you know what, we've changed our mind. We're not going to.
So
It's
so
just
rather
asking
than
for advice.
responding to this now, yes, as Councillor Norman said, this is just, we would come back with that advice.
Yeah, I could ask for advice from my wife on joining a swingers club, but I don't think it's going to go down that way.
Rightio. Here we go. Number
Keep it clean.
number 5, please. Number 5. Aaron, do you want to talk to that at all?
What's that? I think this is a very dangerous precedent to be going down.
Number 5. Number 5.
We're not, we're not
that
in
one.
debate.
I agree, absolutely agree.
Sorry, this is a dangerous precedent because it would save us money. So that'd be very unusual. But no, this one's pretty simple. It's just, and I'll speak on behalf of our community board. We're in a facility that's just been renovated and it didn't need it. We've got brand new carpet, brand new paint.
You're not
a
debating
kitchen
And the
now.
fit out.
question would be what?
What's that? So I'm just.
Seconder, you're not debating it now.
Oh yeah.
Thank you very much.
Just a reminder to everybody that
Jake was going to second that.
the LTP added in additional money for facilities because you want falling behind on maintenance and what. So this is reversing that decision. Yep, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question, not debate.
Okay, far away. Yeah.
Which I understand in principle. Like I just need clarification on what non-essential is, because isn't maintenance
Back
by...
in the advice.
Oh, it is, sorry, I
Yep.
missed that, sorry.
Great.
Thank you.
Must have been a
Now,
concussion.
Can I just check with the mover? Aaron, are you just talking about maintenance or are you talking about renewals as well? Because they're quite different things. The maintenance is like, fixing toilets when they're broken, that kind of stuff. The renewals are things like putting in the extra carpet and stuff. So do you mean the renewals or do you mean maintenance? Do you want to fix broken stuff or just not do renewals?
Yeah, well, maintenance, we can put /renewals because because non-essential would be like a broken toilet. I'd call that an essential fix, or water coming through your roof, essential. But non-essential is carpet. Yeah, and paint and so /renewals. So that makes more sense.
Thank you. That's good.
That's good. Thanks.
Number. No one else.
7. Could we just potentially provide some advice about this one, because we are advices that it's out of order and it's not appropriate, but we do want to...
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. Look, the Water Services Act permits Te Mata Arawai to levy a fee, and that's what they're doing. The legislation, when it comes, will almost inevitably do the same for the Commerce Commission. And so we don't really have any choice, and because it's so foreseeably likely under the accounting standards, now that we've been advised of it, we have to put a provision in, which is our best estimate, and that's what we've been advised by in the letter. So that's why we're strongly recommending.
So we'd potentially rule this one out of order.
Yanni?
Doesn't this jeopardise our submission, because it predetermines a quantum that we may be likely to pay to government and signals that we're happy to pay it? So if we're making a submission to the legislation and the legislation hasn't been agreed yet,
So just clarifying, for Te Mata Arawai, it's in their legislation.
right? And so
for
what's
the Commerce Commission, it's not. So now they're just going through the process of actually setting the levy, but they have the right to levy.
right? But we don't know what the quantum is, and presumably we'll make submissions around the justification for the quantum, and we haven't even had that conversation yet as a council in terms of our submission. So
But-
why would we be flagging to them ahead of?
So we're going to include it in the draft annual plan. You'll be striking the draft annual plan on 1 July. You'll be going out to consultant by then. The submissions will be in the consideration. We know it's coming, so it would be irresponsible not to budget.
But isn't it?
And if it works out as less, we'll take it as a win. But you've got to allow something for it, and that's
Right.
the best stab.
But
in the dark.
if you're the government and you're gonna go set a levy, and someone's saying, "Oh, we can't afford it. We don't think it's reasonable." Oh, but you've already budgeted for it, so you can pay it. Like, it just undermines our ability
I
to
see
make
where
a
you're coming
submission.
from, but we've got to allow for it because something will happen.
We may have budgeted, but we've still got a rate for
So
it.
is that one, do we not vote on that when it comes to it? No, okay. Right. So now we move on to all the recommendations 1 to 4 and the other motions for debate.
So we're just also removing E3.
Yeah, that's right. Page 3. The top of page 3 is where we're at. Debate. But did you say we're taking one out of there?
Yep.
Taking the cat club out.
That one's out.
And that one out. Righto. So far away, who would like to go first on all the recommendations 1 to 4 and any other motions? So open slather on anything that we've talked about to this point. Sarah.
Thanks so much. I'd really like to encourage colleagues to vote for the additional resolution one there on rating for renewals. It is just asking for advice, and it's stuff that we did deal with a little bit in the LTP. And I'd be disappointed if colleagues didn't vote to ask for information that could enable significant savings for residents. In the LTP, if we had taken what was identified as the more financially prudent option by staff, by sticking to our plans to increase rating for renewals, we'd have saved $15 million for residents. Yes, it is really hard for residents now. It's really hard for residents every year, which is why we always try our best to find savings. But it will be really hard next year too, and it will be really hard the year after because costs are not going down. The increases might be levelling out, but costs aren't going down. However, if we continue to kick the can down the road, increasing costs in future years unnecessarily, then things will never get better for residents. So it's time that we were more prudent with residents' hard-earned money and looked past the short-term sugar hits for the longer-term benefits. We are just asking for advice on this one to see what the range could be, just like we're just asking for advice on what the range and the savings potentially could be for facilities maintenance. We don't know what that quantum would be at this stage. We don't know what the quantum would be at this stage. So I just encourage people to ask for advice. Thanks.
Okay, Timothy and then Mel.
Yeah, look, thank you, and thank you to the councillors that brought these changes up. I think we are at a crunch time where a lot of our ratepayers are doing it really hard, so we do have to look at this incredibly carefully, and I think establishing the difference between renewals and maintenance is a really important one, because if we don't do the maintenance, the renewals start to go out the door, and we just can't afford to do that. I would like to see the question put by Councillor Templer with regards to rating for renewals. That question had been asked some time ago, but it's good to keep asking those questions to keep the pencil sharp. The one which I will support without any question, and it is an increase, but it's kind of a cutting a hidden cost, is the plan changes and resources for that. This has been continually thrown at us by central government, who keep telling their staff and the public and the media that, oh, we are looking to cut the costs and reduce and tax cuts, etc. But look at the cost throughout New Zealand on the people, the rates payers through councils. It's kind of a hidden cost they don't pick up, but they are forcing on our ratepayers. So I'll be certainly supporting M4. The others, I'll wait to see. Thank you.
Mel, please.
I actually think Tim's covered it really. I was just going to talk about the plan, supporting money for our plan change, because the team that do that are always working extremely hard. We see them here all the time, and it's a complicated area that most of us are confused by majority of the time. But there's so many plan changes we need to get done, and we don't want to have them dragging on for years and years and years, because it's better to just get these done. And like you say, they're going to be oversubscribed by next year. So I just think it is a cost, but I think if we don't do it or we take too long on some of these, it may be a bigger cost. So I think it's a prudent thing to do.
Tyler?
Christmas couldn't come fast enough because all my colleagues are grumpy. We're asking for advice. It's pretty straightforward for most of these amendments here, and those are the ones that were the most contentious parts. The irony in that. I'm actually going to support Councillor Kewen's advice, or request for advice, by putting a hold on all non-essential maintenance and renewals and council facilities. But I also want to just tell my colleagues, if you've seen the state of the other council facilities across the country, we are by far light years ahead of them. It is absolutely bonkers the amount of maintenance that they don't do across the country in comparison to us. We have immaculate facilities all across the city, and we all know that because we all go to those facilities. And I'd also like to back up my colleague here, Councillor Templeton's rating for renewals part, where we're in the business of intergenerational equity and fairness, and it's always good to take a look at the books to see exactly where we are in our position. I'm still going to think about the alternative ones. The Councillor Johansson's one is quite an interesting one, and from what John was talking to us about, it seemed like it was needed, and I'm really excited to see what February is going to bring us, but I'm really keen to support most of these and happy to take any other debating points from my colleagues. Kia ora.
Okay, so righto, Mary. Andre. Oh, and then Sam, sorry.
It's me? So thank you. I was going to push back against suggestions that I'm too young to know the history of the earthquakes. I am flattered I might look a bit younger. But I was indeed 20 during the 2011 earthquakes working in the central city. But even if I was a teenager at the time, that is no way meaning I don't know my history from back then. But anyone who does know the history knows that that targeted rate was introduced against the majority of submissions. And to me, it seems like the right time to check in, given the situation has changed greatly, on what ratepayers want us to do. Do they want us to hold it for a few more years, or do they want to use it to offset rates? It is the public money. We should ask the public. Besides messing around with subvention payments, which means that you can reduce rates by a bit this year, but increase them over the next 2 years. Besides that, this is actually the single biggest lever we appear to have in front of us to reduce rates rises. So if you plan to vote against even getting staff advice on this, that's all fine. Just be prepared when you go and have conversations with the public on why there's a 9% increase on their rate. Be prepared to tell them why you weren't prepared to ask the public on what the biggest single lever we had to reduce the rates would be.
See?
Thank you, and I guess now that we're in debate, can I just foreshadow against Andre's one's advice, because I'm just a bit confused around what people have raised. I would be more than happy to support it if it is genuinely used to reduce rates. That's not what the resolution says. So the resolution says how to use the funds. So I just flag, as I understand I can.
The amendment I said did specify specifically offsetting against rates.
No, but I'm just picking up your comments because I think if that's the debate we're having, I'm fully happy to get the advice on that. I just don't think that's the sentiment of the table in terms of my understanding, or the impression I get, because we see it every time we do these, is the money would come back in and we would use it for something else. So if it's going to rates, I'm all for getting advice on that, and I'm just flagging that as a foreshadowed on that amendment.
But I'm in
debate.
We're in debate. It's very cool. Let debate finish and then you can clarify it.
Oh, cool. Well, if Sarah's happy to add that in, let's just add that in. Yeah. If Sarah's happy with that as well, to reduce rates with the cathedral money, that's fantastic. Let's get the advice on that. If it's specifically that advice we're asking for. But if it's to use it for other stuff.
Using the accumulated fund for rates reduction.
Yeah, mine said specifically being used to reduce general rates.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't have to foreshadow it if Sarah's happy to add that in. Yeah.
So after fund, put for rates reduction, and then you should have
To reduce rates, to reduce rates.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I'm more. I won't foreshadow. I'm happy.
No,
I just
good.
picked it up from your debate, which is fantastic.
Thank you. One sec.
So shall we just let,
Yeah.
do you want to finish or?
I was just going to say, look, I'm all for looking for stuff that can reduce it. I won't support a lot of the amendments. I still do worry, an average of $5.95 for the average house a week. The cumulative effect of that is significant. Tyler mentioned people being grumpy. I am grumpy because we do this every year. And you'll recall when we went through the LTP, and Andre reminds us of it constantly, we didn't vote to go line by line through the budget. So we've put a lot of pressure on Mary and the team to go and do their stuff, but I'm grumpy because we didn't collectively decide to do that. And so we will have different views, but that is the reason I'm grumpy, because the people I talk to, the first thing they raise after, the second thing they raise after talking about, roads and footpaths is actually how they can't afford to live in our city. And I think, I will continually be grumpy until we're prepared to have those conversations around the table on that, even if that annoys people. I'm more than happy to get advice on the cathedral stuff if it is tagged just to the rates reduction, because we are still in a cost of living crisis. I guess the thing I'd caveat it with is that I actually thought the solution we had to stop the rate, put it into a fund and build up the interest was a long-term pragmatic solution for the city in this particular circumstance. Not for some of the other stuff we're doing in this environment, but particularly for the cathedral, given the contention that has been there. And actually, I think getting the advice is probably the right thing to do, because we haven't talked to the cathedral about this either, and that morally I don't think that is correct to do. So happy to look at that. And I think, we just need to be mindful that we still have work to do as a council, because another $5.95 on average a week is significant for people out there. And I think, the moment we discount that, we really do lose touch with reality.
Jake.
Thank you. Look, I've foreshadowed option 1, and the reason I've done that, I'm not expecting it to pass, and I think option 3 isn't a bad option either, but the reality is that option 1 has been deemed the most prudent, and I've always tried to take a balanced approach between the needs of this year and the hardships of this year and the hardships of future years, and noting obviously that option 1 does provide a lower overall rate crease, i.e. it costs us less to run the city over the next 4 years by reducing borrowing in the short term. So I just wanted to table it and have it there as an option. It's one I'm going to support. But with that in mind, turning my attention to the amendments, kind of in the same vein and spirit, I support the advice that Councillor Templeton has requested. That I think that's also a prudent approach. We should always be looking at all the levers we have and looking at debt reduction, not just rate reduction. I'm happy to support the skate park. Also happy to support the plan change. It's unfortunate, we wouldn't want to have to spend this money, and it isn't money. It is money that we have to spend that's being forced upon us, but the reality is our business has grown in this space. We simply have to provide additional service for planning, and that's simply the demand we must meet. And with regard to the cathedral and the targeted rate, I would have been able to support, it is just advice, and I would have been able to support advice that considered, as I said, all the levers. Rate reduction and rate relief, but if it's just advice on rate reduction, I think it's a little bit insincere to have that conversation with the public, to only give them that one option. I did like Sam's initial pot of money. Let's build it up. We'll have the interest accrue, or Phil. Don't mean to misattribute the credit, especially not to Councillor McDonald. But I, on that basis, I think it's too limited, and it's just not fair to force such a binary choice on the public. So I won't support it on that basis.
Thank you. Aaron, then Vic.
Yeah, most of the stuff I'm fine with. The one that I'm not fine with is the cathedral one, because if it's to take that money, I'm okay with putting it on hold and building up the fund to repair the church or that building. It's more than a church, it's a symbol of the city. To not do that is essentially reneging on a deal that was done with the city and the people of Christchurch, which was very divisive. The irony is that Notre Dame reopened this week, and they rebuilt. And yes, they got Notre Dame's very famous, and it's a beautiful church, and they rebuilt because they really quickly, because they just got a flood of donations within days, because it's an incredibly famous church. It's the fame that attracts the money. Let's not pretend. It's not the what the building actually is, and that's why Notre Dame got its money so quickly. When smaller churches on the other side of the cathedrals on the other side of the world crumble in an earthquake, they just don't get the attention because they're just not as famous. People love fame, so they'll throw money at it. Always have, always will. Christchurch never recovers from the earthquake until that cathedral's fixed. So if you want to be part of the council that leaves a legacy of a broken city, then you vote this way. But we locked that fund up. It was divisive. We then help in the future facilitate whatever conversations need to have to deliver that what will be an attraction in the middle of our city, not forgetting half of all the sites around that building right now are undeveloped or unrented. It is a dead part of the city. It'll stay dead until that rebuild is done. So that is what you're voting for here. So don't mess with that fund. It was very divisive, and it's divisive for a reason. There's a strong anti-church sentiment with some people, so they get very, very motivated with that. But that building's not just a church, it's a symbol of the city. It's on our letterhead. So we should have a broken letterhead, to be honest, until we repair it, because that's the council we are. We are a broken city that has not rebuilt, with a little city that couldn't, not the city that can. And we should be the city that can. And so I'll be very, very disappointed if that money goes back out. And essentially, that'll make liars of the council, because we went out and had a tough conversation, and then 5 years later, we lied to the public. And I don't use that word lightly, because I've never used it at this council table.
Victoria.
Thank you, Councillor Kewen, for those comments in relation to the cathedral, because that is a really tricky one, but I think there's some aspects that you've highlighted there that are really pertinent today. Other than that, just two things for me. I find it quite ironic that colleagues are seeking staff advice on things when we've got recent history that show that the elected members ignore a lot of the staff advice and do their own thing anyway. So let's see how much my colleagues support staff advice and some of the recommendations later today. The other comment is in relation to M3. There was quite a volley between Councillor MacDonald and Councillor Templeton. What have you done with it? Is it gone? Mm. Oh, good. Because I just couldn't understand it, so I was going to abstain. It just didn't make any sense either way. So thank you, Sarah. Great. Sorted. You read my mind. Thank you.
Mark. Oh, sorry, Pauline, then Mark.
Yeah, look, I'll be very brief. Look, with the options on the subvention, look, I do understand Councillor McClelland's view, and it'd be very tempting to support one. It's like that's greater pain now and less later, and probably better intergenerational equity. But if we are really looking at the economic crisis and the cost of living crisis, I think option 3 is the prudent one, reluctantly today, but so I will support that today. Cathedral, no, I think we're doing really well to stop the charges, and I did like your original idea of just accruing the interest and trying to get back up to that 7 million in time, so I won't be supporting the cathedral option to consult and look at it for rate reduction. And also number 5, I think we're walking on dangerous territory there, and I think as Councillor Harrison-Hunt said, we've got really, really good facilities in good condition compared to the rest of the country that may be, but doesn't make the rest of the country right. It makes us right, perhaps, and I think we should be proud of that. I would like to think that staff do not waste money unnecessarily. That's something we could look into more closely if we chose to, but I think that asking them to pause and that unquantifiable term, unnecessary, is quite vague. Or non-essential, I think you've used. The thing is, if you don't keep up with it, it's like having a house, then you suddenly get a tidal wave of all this stuff to do, and you end up like the rest of the country. So I won't be supporting that today. I'd rather support and have faith that our staff do not waste money, and I'm really sad to hear that people think they do, so I hope they don't. So that's me.
Thank you. Mark, and then I'll put it out there after Yanni.
Thank you. Hearing the quantified figure that Councillor McDonald came up with of $5.95 per week for each ratepayer in Christchurch, that hurts. And for us to be contemplating today, adding even more to that, is a little bit astounding and a little bit tone deaf, I think. We need to be really mindful of the finances of our ratepayers and trying not to burden them any further than we absolutely have to right now. I'm certainly interested to get advice back. I'll be very interested to see what the rating for renewals advice comes back like, and whether that's potentially going to give us an increased rates number when we come back in February and onwards into June. It's nice to have the idea of increasing the plan change resource. I'd really like to see that, but again, that's an impact on the rates that I don't know that our ratepayers can actually afford to have thrust upon them right now. Then onwards to the cathedral. I think it's pretty dangerous territory when we start looking at the idea of spending that money that's been collected in an alternative manner. Reducing rates is great, yes, that's a nice sugar hit, but we've still got a broken heart of our city sitting there in the middle of our square, which is going to sit there for how long? I mean, as a city, we've got to sooner or later bite the bullet and get on and fix that so that we can actually recover from the earthquake. I can't agree with the idea of looking to reappropriate that money that was gathered in good faith. I like Councillor McDonald's idea of, okay, we'll suspend the rate, that's good. That gives each ratepayer a lot of breathing space. But then we look at holding on to that money and investing it and allowing it to accumulate. I think that's wisdom. I think the sugar hit of putting it onto the rates for the coming year, whilst it would be nice to have that lower figure, that's one I can't agree with, so thank you.
Yanni.
Oh yeah, thank you. A few things to get through. I think the key thing is we're only given guidance today. This is not the adoption of the draft annual plan, so we're still going to have an opportunity in February to have the more consideration of some of these issues. I think today is about signalling the information that we want to get back so that we can be informed and help staff get the budget as tight as it can be before we do that final adoption. So I'm open to getting the advice on the rating for renewals. I think that makes sense. You know, I'm open. I mean, I'd love you to support the budget, obviously, for the skate park. That, you know, and as staff have said, you know, that's an upper limit. That's not certainly, we're not going to be going to look to spend that just because we've got the money on budget. But actually, it just means that we can progress the next stage sooner rather than later, and give some indication to that community that we are doing the work. In terms of the plan change, you know, I strongly disagree that this isn't something that should be built into our draft annual plan. We need to get on and do the plan changes. If we'd done the plan changes when they'd first been requested in 2018 around the industrial residential interface, many of the problems that some of our communities are facing right now that are taking up inordinate amounts of staff time and council time dealing with the issues could have been mitigated to a lot greater degree than what they currently can be now. Because we haven't had the resource to do the work, it has meant that we have had suboptimal outcomes in our community. The sooner we get the planning resource in place to do those plan changes, I think it saves us, actually it offsets the costs that we spend dealing with compliance, enforcement and complaints that are coming in, right? You've just seen that one of the ironies is that we're increasing the budget for noise control, right? And one of the issues is around those noise complaints through the thing. I do take a little bit of exception to saying that our facilities are wonderful. I'd invite my colleagues to come look at the Linwood Service Centre and come to the New Brighton boardrooms, and you can see that those buildings are certainly not being maintained to, you know, the flashest possible standards. But I do think it's an interesting question to ask, because clearly in some cases we probably are spending money on some facilities around non-essential maintenance that we may not need to spend. So I'm open to getting the information back, but please don't think for a minute that places like the New Brighton boardroom are all spick and span and shiny and sparkling new. There's literally a whole bunch of stuff that's just like been deteriorating on that building. That's a pretty unsavoury sight for people that come in to visit to our council. So, and finally, I'm really disappointed that the resolution around the water regulator has been ruled out. I just think showing our money to the government ahead of our submission is not a sensible approach. I accept that probably by law we'll be required to do that. I just don't think, it's like with Kiwi Rail, we put the money on our budget, there's an expectation that we have to spend it, rather than actually being able to negotiate what's a reasonable cost to our city.
Tyrone, please.
Kia ora, thank you. Look, thanks for all the amendments put in. I'll just take those vote by vote, just as they go. But look, I think the underlying numbers that we've got are sort of a little bit out of our immediate control. Like, it's a bit of a chunky number and nobody likes that. There isn't a lot we can do about inflation or the impact of the stadium at all. But I talked to my colleagues and every single one of them is committed to keeping costs down as much as we can. I absolutely know that. I've never picked anything other than that from any of my colleagues. But listening to the debate today, you'd think that we didn't live in the best run city and the most attractive city and the city people want to come to, because we set the tone, and the tone is really sombre. But I was out on Saturday in Christchurch and I saw Councillor McDonald out enjoying the sunshine.
I should say well behaved, I might add.
Very well behaved. I don't want to cast aspersions on my colleague, but like the city was thriving, right? Like, people were out enjoying it, and like, it's thriving because we've made good governance decisions. So I would encourage, yes, we absolutely need to keep the costs down, but we've made good governance decisions, and I would encourage you to continue to make good governance decisions to continue the momentum we've got.
Well done. Kel. Yep, you mate.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's been a really interesting debate and interesting points made by many of my colleagues. In terms of options, I favour option 3. Reluctantly, it seems that we're caught between the devil and the deep blue sea in terms of rates. When I came in to council, I was really hoping that we could do 2, 3, 4% increases, but pretty soon it became obvious that that was, not even possible.
Did you read Phil's campaign material?
I did. I guess the thing I find distressing about it is that we really are stuck. I'm sure we would all, if possible, if we looked at other options, and I'm not going to go into those now, we would love to ease the burden on our ratepayers. I just think in terms of, if you were renting a house and your the cost of renting the house was going up by 8 or 9% every year, that would be incredibly difficult to deal with. And I was there a long time ago, and it was difficult when things like that happen. And I know that we're trying our absolute best to keep the rates down, but I still find it distressing. As far as the amendments go, I'll sort of deal with those one by one. But I really appreciate what Councillor Fields said in terms of positivity. The city is thriving. I think it's actually in a really good place. We're going in the right direction, and I'd have to disagree with my colleague Councillor Johansson in terms of the facilities that we have around this city. They're absolutely amazing. Yes, some of them are not in a perfect state of repair, but compared to where, compared to what the people of Ukraine are going through, places like Gaza, I mean, we've got it pretty good in this country, and I think focusing on the good things we have and putting up with a little bit more of a delay in terms of fixing buildings and things like that, I think is, it's judicious. And so I particularly like Councillor Kewen's amendment, in terms of non-essential maintenance. We live in an amazing city where, if we're first world, we've got it pretty good here. And rates would be better if they were lower, but we're doing our best to achieve that. So I'm relatively happy with where we've got to, but just in terms of the rate increases, I do find that a bitter pill to swallow. Thanks.
Okay, brilliant. Right, so what I'm going to do is we'll start with number 1, and it's all of these have got movers and seconders, so I'll put them one at a time. So number 1, the rating for renewals. All those in favour? Aye. Against? No.
Just clarifying, this is asking for advice.
Yes.
Do you want, yes, show of hands for no?
No.
Three.
Okay,
Indeed
so
abstains?
Hands up to say no.
Not that.
1, 2, 3 noes. Any abstentions?
none, so that's passed.
Cool. Just going forward, Mr Mayor, could I please request that when we put the vote, immediately ask people for no to put their hands up? If we pause, a lot of people change their minds. Got to go do it straight away.
Okay, yep, come on, move along.
Okay, number 2, Washington Skate Park. All those in favour, say aye. No? No. That's lost, I think, pretty sure.
7.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 against.
7 against, so it's passed. Any abstentions?
So I've said lost, but it's not.
Well, it's 1.
It's 1. Okay, that's 1. Okay. Number 4, plan change resources. All those in favour? Against? No. No. So that's...
Hands quite high, sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against.
So that's what? That's... Okay. Cathedral, number 6, cathedral targeted rate consultation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? No.
Can I get a division, please?
It's an 8, it's lost.
So what, how many was it?
Oh, someone requested a division.
Okay.
Okay, division.
Righto. So we're doing division.
So this is a division for M6, which is the cathedral targeted. Councillor Peters.
No.
Councillor Fields.
Aye.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
Yes.
Councillor Coker.
No.
Councillor Donovan. Deputy Mayor Cotter. No. Councillor Henstock. No. Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Noting that Councillor Goff is away. Councillor Johansson.
Yes.
Councillor Kewen.
No.
Hanson, isn't
Councillor MacDonald.
Yes.
Councillor Barber.
No.
Councillor McLennan.
No.
Councillor Scandrett.
Yes.
The Mayor.
No.
And Councillor Templeton. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 against.
So it's lost.
Status quo.
How's that work?
It'll be, we'll probably be getting advice.
Okay.
Okay.
So that is, I don't know where, but anyway, we'll get advice. And now we're up to the last one for non-essential maintenance, M5. All those in favour of M5, please say aye. Sorry. Those against?
No. 1, 2, 3 against.
So that's carried. Okay. Right. So, do we want to stop for a split second to just see what the rates are at that point?
Yes, yeah, we do just want to...
Just 5 minutes,
5 minutes.
chaps? Would that be enough? 5, 10 minutes? Okay, thank you. We'll be